Hello, I'm Papa Biceps. You're watching the Thorin YouTube channel. And remember, don't f*** with Papito.
Right, this is going to be another episode of Talk to Thorin, and my guest for this one is going to be Ash, who is the long-time coach of GamerLegion. So obviously there are some things you will know about him. There are some things you will not know. On those lines, to begin the interview, obviously a lot of people who are coaches, or talent for that matter in esports, tend to be a bit older. They don't tend to be the 19-year-old fresh out of school, out of the server. What is actually your entry into coaching? Because I noticed you weren't really like a player. Like, you were in the UK scene, but you weren't really like a pro-level player. So how do you go from that to getting a coaching gig? Like, I'm sure a lot of people wonder, what is even the way you break in?
I mean, I tried to be a pro player. I always wanted to do it. It was my passion. But you know, it's like in the UK, right? The UK scene, the country gets no support from anyone, right? Like, I don't think I know a single other person really that plays like any sort of games or anything. You kind of mocked for it a lot in the UK, right?
Yes.
For playing anything, but I had no support from parents or anything. They didn't get it, so I was playing it, but it wasn't really ever like a career option, right? It was just something that competitive nature of me playing sports and everything. I wanted to play Counter-Strike. I really loved the game when I was playing it. So I did try to go pro, but it was a bit of a weird scene where if there was a LAN coming up, you'd make a team together, you'd play it, and then the LAN would finish. You'd be like, all right, guys, we'll see you again in 6 months. We're going to play the next LAN. You're like, oh, well,
sure.
I guess I'm not going to play then. How are we going to be pro if I don't even get to play in a team for half a year, going all these years on, right? But I loved it. I loved the competing and everything. So I stuck around for a really long time playing this, giving it all my best efforts. But it's just impossible when you're not playing it full time, right? So I was towards the top end of the scene. I was nothing.
Were you an
special.
in-game leader?
For part, I kind of did a bit of everything, to be honest. And towards the end, I was in-game leading. I had I think my last team I was on, I had Jane, from Heretics. Jane, he was kind of a breakout sort of guy. Fozy, mezii, and someone else as well. And yeah, I was kind of like always just a good player, but nothing special. I was never gonna do anything that much in the scene. And basically, I was just playing and playing and playing. And I was working full time the whole time as well. And I just thought, I really love doing this, and I really want to keep doing it, but I'm like 27 or 28, I can't really remember. Like, how do I actually have a career in this and not just be like wasting my time, pretty much, which is what I was then. And coaching, it kind of wasn't like a new thing, right? And people, I knew other coaches like Neil M and Imi and people who were in America playing, and they was like, I've known them for quite a long time, and they were making good money doing this. And I thought, okay, maybe this is something I can do and actually stay in Counter-Strike, and I can actually keep my competitive side and keep playing, because I didn't want to drop down the levels and play weaker and weaker. I just wanted to keep playing like a high level. So basically I was on a team with mezii. I played like every team possible with mezii when he first came out. Like, he was like a 16-year-old random, and I think he was literally about to just quit the game when we asked him to join, because he was like a young kid from Birmingham playing on he genuinely had a monitor that had a DVD player in it, and he was playing on like 50, 60 FPS, and I was playing bomb sites with him, and they throw smokes, and I'd die or something, and he'd be on the site, and I'd just watch him, he'd literally just be crashing. It's because all the grenades are going around and playing, and this is like the level that he was struggling on. He was just kind of hanging on, and I think one of us gave him a PC so he could carry on playing, and a new monitor, and he was going to lands and he was killing it. But this kind of prolonged my career a little bit. So when I ended up deciding I'm not good enough anymore as an in-game leader, I went to move to coach. I was going to IGL from coach in mezii's team. It just so happened that mezii decided to join a UK team, one of the UK kind of reject players, and they asked me to go along and coach it as well. And I was like, yeah, I'll go do it. And we ended up in no time being like the team of players that nobody wanted, and we just dominated the UK scene for a good year and a half, maybe, winning like every event possible except for one. And we kind of turned everything that people didn't want into a productive team, whilst still working a full-time job as well. So this was just a way for me to stay in Counter-Strike doing what I loved. And I said at one point my dream would be to quit my job and do it full-time. And this was like the introduction to it, all right?
When mezii got his chance in the famous Henry G Colossus, as it was called, to counter the Juggernaut from Call as the market, if people remember, what people don't know is the reason he was the name everyone was like, who? Is because they had spent so much on all the other players. That was sort of the way to make the budget not totally ridiculous, because, I mean, spoiler, it didn't even work out as a team, did it? So what they did on that one is, that was one where I believe it was something like, because he was getting Alex as well, I think he was also like, oh, get this mezii guy or whatever. And Henry told me, though, before, because I was actually talking to him when he was the GM for all these moves. And obviously, if he told me something, I'm getting walk sick. Like, you don't really need to tell me much there. Yeah, he's good. We've seen him. We know how good he is. But when he told me this, I was like, why are you getting this player though? And he told me, like, bro, I've watched all his demos. And if you watch his demos, I'm not even kidding. I'm going to get him as like a support development. He said, literally, he already does it. Like the demo looks like he could literally already be pro at this. Like, he knows like all the fucking smokes and it looks like he's done. He said basically he looks like he's mega diligent and like super dedicated to the game or something. Like, was he this sort of player when you were working with him?
Yeah, he was. The only thing he was kind of lacking was a bit of confidence, a bit of direction, to be honest, because no one... The problem with the UK is there's just nobody to copy. You're kind of making it up all your time, right? And this is what I'm doing as a coaching side. I can't talk with anyone, really.
Right.
You're just kind of like, every day you're learning a little bit more, right? And he's kind of... This is what me and him had, I think, really we were really in line with this, and we both had the same sort of vision. We were just trying to get better, and we're having to do it ourselves, because there's nobody to look up to. But he was this guy, like, I remember he just always had... like a week, he'd be like, oh yeah, I'm going to do some aimbots, I'm going to watch demos, and every week I'm like, go on the server and practice my nades for an hour. All his nades, all the time. I've still never worked with anyone who has like this sort of direct work ethic. And he sticks to it all the time. He never ever breaks this ever. And this is why he's so, I say he's like a calculated player, but he's so consistent. He's so reliable. And I remember sitting in TeamSpeak with Alex or something one day randomly, and he was saying like, oh yeah, Mezii's the kind of guy where if he makes a mistake, he'll point it out and he won't make that mistake again for like 3 months. Okay. He'll just fix it straight away. He'll improve on it. And I was like, yeah, you know, that's the guy I knew the whole time. And I wasn't surprised at all, because I was coaching GamerLegion when he went to Cloud9 as well. And I was like, yeah, we were literally like, we knew it was going to happen. We were hanging on to him for as long as we possibly could. And he was like, we were trying to hang into MDL at the time. And if we didn't do that, GamerLegion would probably just not exist anymore in Counter-Strike. And we were like, he was carrying us so hard. He was everything about the team. So when we sold him, we're like, this is probably the end of the team, right? There's no way we're going to hang on now, but it was just obvious. I think it was by far like the standout player in the entire division, and we were winning like 6 out of 15 games, and he had the best stats in the entire league, you know? So it was no surprise to me. What was the surprise to me was how they used him. They kind of threw him in the deep end of it, said, oh, yeah, anchor and everything, and he never played this in his entire life. Okay. But he's still, even then, I think he was pretty impressive.
He was good,
he did, right?
Yeah. No, that's what I was going to say.
It surprised me, really.
To me, that's the thing that's always so weird is everyone like flames that project, and obviously certain people, but they probably do deserve flame. I thought, well, because it was shit in that team. I even know some things behind the scenes about why it wasn't good. There were certain people weren't that good and obviously didn't win the games. But I always said, if anything, Mezzii's the one who came out fucking spotless. He looked great, mate. And then when he went to Fnatic, people remember he did like about 3 different roles. He looked good in them all. By the way, he was making like top 8 fucking majors and stuff. Like, even though, again, people probably couldn't even name the lineup of that Fnatic team. And then he came to, obviously, get into Vitality one day, right? Is it kind of surreal to see a guy, like you say, he was going to quit? He was actually like, I mean, look, he hasn't won the major yet, but he's won bloody IEM Cologne. Like, it's pretty fucking insane, isn't it?
It's literally insane. We don't talk to each other as much now, because I think he's kind of a guy where if he's in a team, he's like, that's his team, that's his family, he's going to stick with it at all costs. But we used to talk to him all the time, and I was looking at him at events like, this is so weird seeing a guy that me and him were going to like epic lands and stuff, you know, when we come in like top 8 and be like,
not
wow,
even winning them, yeah.
Like come like top 8 and be like, wow, we did so good this event, and grinding through. I think I was at every team he was on for like 5.5 years or something ridiculous. And then I'm seeing him like on the, like even now, like on the final stages and stuff at big events. And I'm just like, wow, it's just, for me, it still like blows my mind a little bit. It's just this young kid that I knew who just playing on a monitor with a DVD in it, just impressing everyone all the time. And he was getting rejected from UK teams. And this is the guy that he kind of is now, you know? And when he went to Cloud9, I did have good question marks about him because of what they were asking him to do, but I had no question marks about that he would do his best and he would like become good at it. The same way when Fnatic asked him to game lead, I said exactly the same things to some of my friends. Like, this doesn't fit him at all, but he will do everything he can. He will listen to every single bit of advice. He'll watch podcasts. He'll do everything he can to be the best game leader he can. And for that reason, he will succeed, but it might not fit him. It might not be the best of him, you know? So I'm super proud of him, to be honest. I wish I talked with him a bit more now, but it's just the way it is. It just kind of sucks. But yeah, it is definitely weird. It's really weird sometimes.
Right. Well, I also saw in the early days, you had the player who, I mean, this is the nature of what a lot of the Valorant stars is. Obviously, they weren't really people in CSGO often, and they went over to Valorant and they got their shot early. You played with Link, the guy, if people don't know, was in Team Liquid, Ascend. Like, these are top teams. Like, who was this guy actually like a talent in CSGO?
He was like a talent with he just wasn't reaching his potential. And when I said that I joined the team and we made with all the rejects, he was kind of the guy that was really rejected because he'd kind of hit his ceiling and he wasn't like progressing at all. I think he kind of had big trust issues with coaches and stuff in the past because they were very direct with him, and he doesn't really like that sort of style. I think he's probably changed a bit now. But he was a guy you could see he had lots of talent, but he wasn't really putting it to use. And what happened with us is everything started clicking for him over time, and he got better and better. And there was a point where we were genuinely saying that we think that he might be better than mezii when we were playing, and we thought this guy's got a lot of talent. And then Valorant came out, and I think he just had so many seasons where he'd hung around and just been getting paid like 500 quid, thrown into boot camps that weren't properly built, like you get like into hotels that like literally hadn't been built at all. Like you're going in, there's just building work everywhere, and he's having to sleep there for events and stuff. And he's not getting paid sometimes. He doesn't know where the paychecks come in. He's just sick of it. And when Valorant came out, he just thought, this is a fresh start for me, and this literally killed our team. That this team was so close to us, like going full time for everyone. We were the top team in the UK. We were top 15 in HDV, which isn't like the biggest thing ever, but we were making big improvements. And then half the team just went to Valorant, and they just instantly were the best players in the game, like quite a few of them.
Yeah.
So yeah, I could definitely see his talent. It's just that if he really wants something, you can see he's going to be great. But if he has a lot of setbacks, I think he's the kind of guy who gets thrown off a little bit by it.
By the way, along those lines, look, obviously we're not talking about GamerLegion, your current org that you've been in. This is like a real org now. But that's another thing I don't think people appreciate about the hustle of when someone's trying to grind and go up through the esports industry is you basically have to sort of like go through a bunch of bullshit first. Like you have to have teams that might not pay you, or they pay you not or fuck all, or you go, like you say, you go to a LAN and then the hotel is like literally 4 people in a room and like someone's getting shit sleep, or the quality's really bad, or I always say the famous ones for people who are like Europeans who came to like UK events would be where they thought they were in like the equivalent of like the Hilton or something. It's like you're about to find out. I always tell them, if you ever go into the hotel room and like the bathroom is like one massive piece of plastic molded for everything, the shower, the thing like that, like some out of a spaceship. I tell them, you're in the cheapest hotel ever, mate. Like that's probably like 50 quid or 24 quid a night or something like that. But that's like, that is life in the early days, right? So people think it's just a tiny bit scaled down from tier 1, but obviously tier 1 since about 2015, mate, has already been like fairly luxurious. Like those guys lived the dream. Like it was only a couple of years after that, they were all business class, like they're fucking living the dream. What's it been like in the early years? Like, was it hard going? Does it ever make you think like, is this bloody worth it?
It's to be honest, it isn't worth it. It's really not worth it. There's people still slumming out now. And to be honest, if I didn't get away from this UK team, I don't think I'd probably quit at some point. Anyway, you just kind of, if you don't have a chance, you're just screwed. Nobody can pay. Like even now, it's just endpoint if you get a salary, and that's it. There's nobody else. And it's been this way for the entire time I've played. And endpoint, like they're probably hemorrhaging money as well, and they're still doing it, right? There's nothing. There's genuinely nothing in the UK. You have to stand out so much to even have a chance. And I barely even got a chance anyway, even though we did so well. It just kind of more like, because players that I'd worked with had gone to GamerLegion, it gave me a chance to get my foot in the door. Otherwise, I'd probably have no chance. So this is, it's kind of, it's just horrible. Like you go into LANs, the admins have never worked events before. You're going to go to bed at 4 or 5 a.m. because you've just finished games. You've got a game at 8 a.m. They don't care. They're sticking to the schedule. You've 2 hours sleep. You're coming back. Teams show up whenever they want. They're scared to give them default wins because of the shitstorm they'll get on Twitter and everything. And you just have to get on with it. And it's just a constant, like getting punched in the face sort of thing, playing all these events, knowing that you're doing it all for like 200 quid that you'll probably never even see. Because once it's split between the org and everything, you like end up, you're not getting like, and nothing's paid for as well a lot of the time. Right? Like if you win the event, you might break even.
Yes.
This is kind of the life we're living to get. Maybe if you're lucky, get 250 quid a month, 300 quid if you win in events. And you can't live off 300 quid in the UK a month. It's not even close, right? So it's you kind of just, you're playing it as a passion. It's nothing else really in the UK. You have to be exceptional.
One thing I do think people should already have a sense from your answers is if they're only used to Americans, or even like some of the, like, I actually know what you mean when you said earlier about no one's parents even support them. Look, you've never heard that story. You know, if you ever hear like an American player being interviewed, they'll be like, yeah, my mum and dad are like staying up watching all the games. Like, the fuck are you talking about, bro? Like, that wouldn't even happen if you're on the bloody major. They might go, I might tune in for the final. You know what I mean? Like, that's just not in the UK. I always say the difference between the UK and America is, and they really do tell their bloody kids, they're like, you can be anything, you can be president. It's like, by the way, you can't, by the way, Americans, but bless you for saying that. In the UK, you do the opposite. You sort of tell them, like, look, don't get too big for your britches. You probably won't do that. You know, just do something sensible, like get a fucking office job, chill out, maybe go to uni if you get a degree, and then just fucking don't go too high. So the question is, when you were going through the slog, did you have a dream though? Maybe it was a naive dream. Did you have a dream? I'm going to make it though as a coach. Like, did it? Like here's the thing: in the coaching role, in theory, someone could say if you grind and you're trying to come up with something innovative, you can kind of force the hand a chance a little bit.
I'll just say, coming back to that thing before I lose my train of thought. My dad has only ever seen one game of Counter-Strike, and it was a major final.
He didn't even watch you beat fucking Heroic in the semi-final of a world championship.
No.
It was like, by the way, dude, that was like the number 1 team at the time, or number 2. Like, bro, you maybe watch the replay. Come on.
No, I've never even watched it. This is like the struggle of growing up in the UK,
Sure.
right? I had to lie about, my PC wasn't good enough for schoolwork to get a chance to play Counter-Strike in the first place, to get an upgrade, because my computer would just crash after a while because my FPS was so low. Like, this is kind of the struggle you go for. Like, I had like a curfew. I had to be off the PC at 10 p.m. every night.
Oh, what a nightmare. I bet scrims was getting delayed and always going past 10 course.
Yeah, it was just the worst. And if anything, like if I ever had if it's anything wrong ever, like my parents were on my back straight, like, it's a computer, it's this and that, it's all bad for you. You should be out drinking or you should be out doing this. You're like, why is this bad? Why do you want me out doing drugs and stuff? Like, you encourage me to do this instead. So that was like always a struggle for me. I wouldn't say like my parents didn't support me, but they definitely weren't helping things in that aspect, other than me when I was getting what I kind of needed, right? So so what was it? The question was,
like, as a coach, did you have some dream that you can ascend to tier 1? You can go up through the ranks?
Yeah, when we were doing really well in Vex at the end, when we were the UK team, I was talking to Keita and stuff, and I was like, yeah, if you get into MDL, you can get like a full-time salary. Sorry, Keita, the coach of Fnatic, right? Yeah. And he's like, if you could do that. And we would just constantly get into like the last game possible. Bear in mind, we're playing all semi-pro, every one of us working for like full-time job, get into the last game possible and just losing. It's like 3-4 months to get there at this point anyway, maybe even more, and then getting there one chance and losing it over and over and over and over. And you have the dream, but it's just like, it's never going to happen. Like, I remember talking to our org at the time, and it was like, if you guys do this, you're going to go full-time. If you do this, you're going to go full-time. And every time we hit it, it's like, well, they don't have the sponsors, they can't afford to do it. It's never going to happen. And this is part of the reason why Link and Co probably went to Valorant. They were just sick of hearing it. And I was like promising them, guys, if we do this, it's going to happen. Oh no, sorry, this time, if this happens, whatever. And it was like a dream that one day maybe I'll be able to do my job, but it probably won't happen. And that was like, all I wanted to do was one day do it as my job, nothing else.
I saw in one of the early GamerLegions, there was a couple of players people might know. So the famous person, I even say that in context famous, is if anyone remembers back in the day, about 10 years ago now, he was in Hellraisers. It was obviously the player that's from Slovakia, I think it is, isn't it? Zero, if everyone remembers him. He used to be... Now, I can actually remember, I have a good memory for these things. He actually used to, at the time, like 9 years ago, whatever, be like a shit hot talent if people don't know. He actually had like pretty good fucking aim. If you don't know, he played like Stako, etc. He was in those teams. What was this guy like to work with?
Well, I still work with him now, actually.
Oh, right.
He's the guy that, he helps produce.
He came as a coach, right? Oh, all right. He's a content creator. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, this guy does everything. Right? Literally everything. He's giving like seminars and stuff at like the World Health Association and stuff. It's about hearing and traveling around the world. He's the kind of guy I'll just be like, today I'm just going to invent a new program. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And he just does it. He's just like a bit like ADHD or something. I'm going to do this today. And he masters things. Like, he's just unbelievable in that aspect. But he was like, to work with him, he was one of the nicest guys, one of the easiest people to work with. He was similar to Sticko, and like, he kind of thinks about like the emotions of everyone and how important atmosphere is and what he should do to contribute and all this stuff. I think he was mega demotivated because he got burned out. They like ran him into the ground in Hellraisers really badly, and they didn't think about this at all. And then when he came back, he was so far off it because he'd been away for so long that he just really found it hard to. He didn't feel like he was ever back at his normal level, and he was always looking for the answer. What was it before? What was it? What was I? What's different? What can I improve? And it just wasn't clicking for him at all. And I think he hated it, like really badly. I think he hated it. He was trying so hard, and he was like, it just wasn't working for him. But that guy he's super talented, and I can fully understand why he made it so far. His brain he's just like an unbelievable person, to be honest. And he invented like the flashbang thing, right? To stop tinnitus and people's hearing with the sounds. People are still using that now. This is the kind of guy he is. He's just a bit of everything. So I think if he really puts his mind to something, he could definitely be like a fully elite player. But I think the coaching at the time really didn't suit his personality, and it kind of turned him away from Counter-Strike. It kind of killed his passion for the game. And then when you're away from it, it's really hard to come back to the level you were, especially when you know you were so good and you can't get back there again. I think there's nothing worse really for a player is having that ego still, but not having the skill to match it. And then you put your ego against the skill that you can't hit anymore, right? And you just think, this is terrible. I can't hit it. And it makes you feel worse. So it was great to work with, and I can see why he's doing so well in life, to be honest.
And then you had a player where people aren't going to know the name probably, but maybe if I tell them that this guy, Rusty, the Swedish player, was a guy who, he was basically in nearly all of Hampus's early teams. They were like, I think they were mates or something, like they just kept joining teams together. And so he's someone where like he sort of went almost to like the level people would know him, and maybe they saw the odd online game from Red Reserve or something like that back in the day, if people can remember, but he never quite made it past that. Who was this person? Because another thing about that is, actually in that era, it's kind of unusual to have Swedish players playing outside the Swedish scene, you know?
Yeah, Rusty's a super nice guy, super friendly. I think if he just wanted to win 20% more, he'd be a much better player than he kind of is, to be honest. I think he'd probably even admit that. But he was just like super reliable player. He was like a mini mezii in a way, but not like as committed to the game. Like he was an in-game leader, he was lurker, he was star player, rotate. Like he played like everything kind of, and this is kind of been him his whole career, right? You put him in a team, he's never the reason that you're bad. He does a good job, and that's kind of who he is. But yeah, he was a super nice guy to work with and super chilled guy. I think maybe people like Draken and these other guys have probably like rubbed off on him the wrong way a little bit with attitude. But
right.
he was like a stepping stone, to what we are today. Like we couldn't have done it without him. Like we would not have survived as a team at all if he wouldn't as solid as he was. Like I said, we would dropped out of MDL, we'd have lost our sponsors, and the organization were saying to us, if we don't have this anymore, we're probably not going to have a CS team. So people like him are one of the reasons we still exist, I think.
And then as we talk about some of the later lineups, people might not know, Imma and Izak were in this team for years before you guys ever heard of them at Tier 1 in that famous major. So I want to ask about these two guys. Let's go with Izak first, because obviously he's the guy who hasn't got as much profile, because NIP hasn't had the results really that probably could have boosted him back up again, right? You had this guy ages ago, mate. So who is this guy? I mean, people will remember from that major run, he really was another player that had a breakout. He had massive, obviously the heroic series, he was fucking sick in some of those maps. Who was Izak, and how you've worked with him for so long, so give me some insight.
I don't think we would have gone with Izak if it wasn't for Era, who we had at the time, the Opera, who knew him. He played on his team before, and he was vouching for him quite hard. And to be honest, like the eye test and everything, it wasn't really like good. Okay. It was just like, yeah, he looks like an okay player. We can probably put him in the roles and be reliable. And he's just a guy that he soaks information so well, and he has like nothing phases him, like mentality, like it doesn't really matter who he's playing against or what the situation is. Like if it's more stressful, that's the better he is. I think that's like his biggest quality at all, is that you put him in a clutch or anything, if he shouldn't win it, he's going to win it. That's the kind of the guy sort of is. Like obviously it's not all the time, but he can be like 5 kills, 20 deaths, and he's going to put up a good performance still. He's not going to like stress or tilt or anything. He's still going to do all the things he should be doing. He's not going to catch his teammates off guard, and he's going to win clutches and stuff that he shouldn't win. You'd think that he'd do that one tap 2 people, he'd be like, well, why are you not on 25 kills? It's a bit weird, but he was like he was the rock of our team for so long. Like even like in the Paris team for so long, he was a rock. You put him everywhere, and you just do a good job all the time. 6, 7 out of 10, no matter what. Never would let you down. Maybe you just get owned a bit, and you wouldn't shoot back as hard, but you would always be super reliable for us. So he kind of came out of nowhere. But it's not like we picked Izak out, and Izak was that guy, and he was just super underrated. He just got a lot better, to be honest.
Right. Obviously, without being rude, I'm guessing NIP is a bigger organisation than GamerLegion, even in spite of the stick of money and having that run through the major, even if actually GamerLegion, the lineup was better than NIP at the time he went. Was it a scenario where he just couldn't say no to that offer? Was there a world where he could have stayed in GamerLegion? What do you think?
I knew we were in trouble when I heard he was in talks with NIP, and it happened for I think it was like 4, 5, 6 months or something, right? So we knew it was happening, but for the entire time he was in GamerLegion, he would always watch NIP all the time. So I just think it's one of those. It's just like one of those things, you grow up with football and you wear the jersey and stuff. Sure. And that team comes, you want to go to that team. I think this is just him. He kind of is there, and if anything, like kind of with GamerLegion, like the instability as well with the roster and all these changes and stuff, I think it was kind of like, yeah, why would I stay at this point? I'm going to go join those guys. So I can't really blame him, to be honest. I think he kind of always at some point wanted to play on NIP, 100%.
What was it like then, to flash forward a little bit? That has to be one of the most absurd things about the GamerLegion run, because as I said on Snake and Banter, it's not even just that you made the final. It was actually like turning into a competitive fucking final against like Zebu and company, like who were basically CS royalty. It's pretty insane to have Imma and Izak, who you played with for all these years, just go with you from the ranks. Like at this point, this team, if people don't know, they wouldn't even win in online cops. Like as you said, you're bloody MDL. You're not even the shit team at the bottom of Pro League that gets beaten up by everyone, and everyone goes, "Who gives a fuck about AG or whatever?" You're not even that team. So the idea the same players can stay, and then years later, at the end of CSGO, you can have this hurrah again. It's like some out of a movie. It feels like.
Yeah, it was so Nice. Like I still like I love the fact that they make all these documentaries and stuff. You know, I go back and watch them. Like a GamerLegion did one on the Paris Major run. It's so good to watch it on. And like it's behind the scenes stuff. And like, oh yeah, that's the way the team was. You know, we were so close, but we were so close because we'd all gone through everything. We'd gone through all the lows of like, oh, not quite getting through qualifiers to random terrible events, or the highs of just scraping on and holding on to a league spot or something like this. And then the highs were becoming different or qualifying to a major, going deeper in a major, like. To get all that way with these people, it made it more special. You know, when we were so close, it felt like we had like the perfect sort of team atmosphere all the time because we'd done everything so far and we trusted each other like unbelievable amounts. And for me, I was so proud. Like I remember there's a clip somewhere blasted, and I didn't know we were doing it at the time, but we were just about to go into the final stage against Vitality, and they'd come up behind us and they were recording us. And I said to the guys, like, I think you're going to get booed here on the final. And it's weird because the game before we'd obviously been cheered like crazy, right, against Heroic. And I said to them, like, they're not going to boo you because they don't like you. They're going to boo you because they want the other team to win. And then I remember just watching them step back. So I wasn't allowed on the stage because Valve hates coaches and fuck coaches, right? And watching them, and the stage comes up, and they're just all getting booed, and they're just like smiling and trying to laugh it off. And it's literally the most proud I've ever been in my life because of where they've come from with them. You know, like these guys, I've been with them for years and years and years, and seeing them like, wow, we're good enough that we're on a stage that the other team is desperate for it to lose at this point, and they're booing us like this, and be like. It was so proud of them at that moment, to be honest. So if you don't have the story, if it's just a random bunch of people put together at last minute, you don't really give a shit.
Sure.
You know, you just want to win the game. So I think it added like way more emotional for me.
I'm going to guess it's a similar story with Immer, who was there all those years ago as well. Like, if I look at his stats, no one would look at this and go, oh my God. Put it this way, he would never get that article that HLTV used to do, you know, the next one or whatever, like one for the future. Because they just do that when someone breaks the stats in tier 2, guys. They're not even using an eye test. They're just going, oh my God, this guy's got a 1.4 rating. Yeah, well, everyone could see that. But he wasn't that guy. If I go look at some of his events, mate, I haven't watched the old demos, but I don't know that I would pick this player to be someone who could ascend. Like, spoiler, this year he's probably going to be a HLTV top 20 player. So who was Immer back then? Who was this guy, and was he someone who had to grow a lot over the years?
He was I remember that it's the weirdest story how we got him, by the way. Generally nice players do like stupid social media, like April Fool's jokes, and like, oh yeah, I'm getting kicked by my organization, something stupid. We were looking for a player and he posted this, and we were like, should we try and just see? Because we've already tried him before, and he said no. And we tried him, and he was like, oh yeah, my contract, I'm actually in a weird situation where I'm not getting paid, but tomorrow I'm going to sign a contract and I'm signing with Nexus to get paid. And we're like, okay, I guess we'll try him now. And he was like, yeah, he wants to come join. And I was like, oh, is your English good enough? And he was talking like it fit perfectly. So we got this guy in, and I remember in practice just being like, wow, this guy's unbelievable, we need to sign him. But to be fair, the whole time we were playing like tier 2, there was like a bunch of standout players. It was like Roy, Flit, mezii, but Immer was right there the whole time.
Oh, wow.
He was kind of like always the third best. You know, if you went to tier 2 and picked some players out, you'd always be like, should we take Immer? Maybe we won't take him. You know, so it wasn't like he wasn't consistent or anything. It's just he wasn't having the sustained consistency of like superstar player, which like those guys were having. But we're talking about like even like Roy is a very good player, right? At some point, but Flit, mezii, like they were proper superstar players at this sort of level, and some of the AWPers as well coming through. He was always there, and he was a really good player. It's just he wasn't having the 1.3 rated tournaments, like the major sort of thing. He didn't have ever had a tournament for that, like even in tier 2 level. Yeah. He was just really consistent, and he did a really good job, and he was super calculated guy, and he's just always he just has his set plays, and he'll go to his things that he knows best, and he'll just run them into the ground, and they'll work for him. And that was kind of the guy he was, and he improved a lot, to be fair. I think mentally he improved a lot. That's the biggest thing I'll say, that he didn't get tilted as much. He trusted his game more. He felt the confidence. I could see him improving, but it wasn't like a real steep thing. You know, it was very gradual, very sort of slow. When it came up to the end of CSGO, I think you could see a guy that was just trusting his talents, and he understood the game, and he was mastering the game. And then CS2 came out, and it all went kind of through the floor just like that, right?
Along those lines, that's actually the funny thing, is when you guys made the playoffs and it was clear that you're actually going to be a good team and go deep, I went back and tried looking, or I went like, let's go and like look at the fucking RMR. He wasn't even doing that on the RMRs, guys. Like, he wasn't doing those numbers. But I have to say, when I watched his demos at the major, because there was a bunch of POVs people instantly put up, like especially on his favourite map, Mirage, he did actually have like a mega sense for like where to be and when to control the situation, how to take his duels and stuff. He didn't have like the most bonkers, but he had pretty good like consistent aim and stuff. Like, was he a player where like was that like even a surprise to you what happened at the major? I mean, if people don't know, unironically, dude, if it wasn't for the fact it's Ziwu, if you'd have even made the third map, he actually might still have been able to win the MVP. Like, he would have been, if people don't know, if Ziwu didn't win, especially if GamerLegion, he would have been the MVP, I'm telling you. I actually think they wouldn't even have given it to Ziwu because his numbers were really bonkers in that major. Like, he had a pretty sick scoreline. What did you think? Was that a kind of a surprise?
No, to us, it was a mega surprise. Like, I expected him to be good, but like you said, all the lands he'd been to, he'd just been okay, kind of. I think he'd probably be himself been a little bit disappointed. But it's just one of those things where you get into an event early and something just clicks, and you don't care about anything else anymore. You don't think about the pressure or anything. You're just feeling the game, and he was enjoying the game. I remember saying to him, I sent him a message when I think they were just about to play the major final with Na'Vi, and I said to him, like, you like a guy who's not enjoying the game anymore. And the guy that I saw at when he was there with us, he didn't care about anything at all. Like, seriously, he didn't care. Like, I remember he had one round where he sprayed at someone horribly and he missed, and he looked at the camera and just went like, ooh, making like a funny face at the camera. And I was like, this is a guy that he's feeling the game now. He just has trust in himself and everything else. He's just playing the game. But the guy on Na'Vi who was struggling, I could see he was struggling with all the pressure of everything, and he wasn't being himself at all. So everything in this event just fully clicked for him. But it's not like it was just luck either. It's like you said with the demos. He's just a very good player. He'll clear every angle properly all the time. He just might not have the best aim, but he has very consistent aim. Yes. And he doesn't ever really fall for any tricks. Like, you do something to him and he's ready for it all of the time. Like, maybe a timing catches him, maybe the odd thing here and there, but he's so good at being in the chaos and making it really organized for himself. He thrives in it, you know? Like, you put him in a situation where smokes are blowing up everywhere, there's flashes going off everywhere. He's just doing his job. Like, he's going forward, taking space, taking his jewels. And I don't think I don't think you can fake this no matter how confident you feel at tournament. It's just that everything clicked. Everything clicked. We was working with our sports psychologist at the time as well, and I think that was another dimension. And for that, he was just like, fuck it, I'm a superstar now, and I'm just going to smash everyone. And every game they went into, it didn't matter how his start was, he was coming back all the time. So that for me was a big shock, but that showed the jump that his mental had taken from previous tournaments, where he was literally almost crying in the middle of the tournament. So went to the RMR in Bucharest, and he completely shut down. He'd lost I think he had one event where he went one map, where he went like positive figures, and the rest of it he was literally terrible. And this was like the completion of him, you know, like the evolution of him was there at that major, and everything came together for him. And I wasn't surprised in that sense, but I was surprised that the level he played was ridiculous.
It's funny that when I was saying I watched the demos, and one of the things I actually think is like a strength of mine, just because I've watched the game for longer than anyone else, mate, it's just I'm quite good at sort of like figuring out like I think I would probably be the best if you showed me a player, if I had to say which pro players he like. And what's funny is when I did this video where I talked about Imma, I basically told people, look, he obviously isn't as good as this player, but his style actually, believe it or not, is actually like niaco's. If you ever watch, like, as you say, he clears all the angles properly. He never gets caught out when he does a peek. Like, the guy is at the angle he thinks he's going to be, and then he takes the spray against him. And so what's funny is, I'll even make an obvious comparison. Well, spoiler, niaco wasn't that good at the beginning of CS2 either. He even had problems. So I even think, like, stylistically, you probably have to adapt if you hit top of a player. Like, I get the feeling those riflers may have to be a bit more up-tempo in CS2. And then I know what you mean. In Na'Vi, bro, I even told people, you could tell who was just looking. This is where one of the areas where it's just my own beef. It's one of the areas where I hate the HLTV rating. Because the one problem it has is, it's only good at sort of showing, like, the aggregate of a player, because it's trying to do all these different possible factors, right? But one thing it can't show you, the area it's flawed is this. Essentially, I'll give you an analogy. What if you had a striker who does fuck all else in the game, but he scores goals? You'd be like, I mean, there's still value there. So you are scoring goals. You win games if you score. So I always told people when they used to look and he'd have a shit rating in Na'Vi at the beginning, if you ever watched his game though, he wasn't just getting no kills. He would kill people. He just couldn't get like multi-kill. He couldn't take over a game basically. He would sort of like get a kill then die, or he'd like, you could, in fact, as you're saying, I even got the feeling he just was uncomfortable. That's what I always used to say. It was never that he was bad. It was that it's not like he's an idiot and he can't make a decision. I could just tell, like, it looked like the weight of the world the whole time was on him. Now look, obviously some of that has lifted now and he's fucking flourished, hasn't he? And everyone knows, like, it's been enough maps now, it can't be a fluke, can it? I mean, I think he's done like 50 maps now, something with like top 20 type numbers. So what when you say like you watched him in Na'Vi, did you ever like think maybe he's just going to be done though, and people are just going to think he's trash? Because it was a pretty big hate train. Like, I mean, I will say one small shading, which is, to be fair, the reason also people were hating is they thought if they hate on him they can get Simple back in the team, and it's fucking Simple, bro. So that's probably the worst like scenario ever, to have Simple behind you on the bench, as it were, you know. But what did you think of this whole scenario where, like, put it this way, if people had listened to fans, if they did a poll of Na'Vi fans, mate, he never would have made it made past that player break and be doing all this amazing shit now. He would have been booted and probably Simple would be there, right? So what did you think of this whirlwind he got caught up in?
First off, I genuinely can't believe that he came back from it, because I know if that's me, I would be so done.
Sure.
If I saw all these every single time he played a map, it genuinely we go on, Imma, all down the whole pitch. He played one round or something, got killed in the back. And it's just every time calling him terrible.
They tried to make it sound like he was like the worst player in tier 1 or something, didn't they?
Yeah, and how to come back from that, I've genuinely got no idea. But I think that there was a bunch of issues for me that when he went to Na'Vi, I think obviously the step up for one was difficult, the dealing with the hatred was difficult, but I could see the way he was dying it's like he was trying so hard to prove himself maybe or something. He looked like they had no idea what they were doing on T-sides. He was constantly just going in and dying at the most random times and positions, no trade potential or anything. And I think that the system itself just didn't exist, or he hadn't bought into it. But the main thing for me was that I was watching the way he was playing, and he was still playing CSGO and CS2. He was so static in all of his duels. He wasn't wide peeking anyone. He was playing the way that had made him so good in CSGO, with the very meticulous peeking angles properly, like proper stuff, like counter strafe in the right positions, everything, not just a brainless swinging it is now, where you swing, you crouch, you move to the left whilst you're crouching, you move to the right when you're standing up and stuff. He wasn't doing any of this for quite a long time, and to be honest, I'm not really surprised, because why would you? This had worked for him for so long, and he probably had the thought process at some point, maybe they would fix this, and he would probably be back and being like level again, right? And this is probably the same reason Nico had to. He had to change his whole game. He had to learn that, well, maybe this guy's holding me. Well, the game says just swing and kill him now, right? So I reckon there's loads of different factors that kicked in, but he's also a guy that if he doesn't feel like he's trusted, it's a really, really, really big deal for him. And now I know he's trusting it. I even bumped into him in Copenhagen recently when we were playing a tournament, and I asked him, like, how's the team? Are you liking it? And he's like, yeah, I literally love it. It's great. It's whatever. And I could tell that this is the reason why he's playing so good now. He likes everything about it. He just loves everything. He trusts everyone. And this is what he had when he was in Paris. He just suddenly, either he stopped giving a shit or he started trusting everything, and it just all clicked for him. So I think you combine everything together now, and I don't think he's not going to have a drop off anymore, to be honest, unless he just suddenly stops caring or the system falls to shit or something. I think he's just become a stronger player from all the hatred, and it's probably made like his story a bit more epic and everything, you know. So fair play to him. I if that's me as a player, I would be done. I would just fall apart, and you see me on tier 7.
Oh, most people would, yeah.
By the way, that mental side's unbelievable.
For people who only know GamerLegion from the Blast Paris Major, they're going to think that one I said earlier of like it's just Izak and Imma with you. If people don't know, by the time you start getting into the RMRs, like the PGL Antwerp one, this is actually the same lineup you'd had for like a year or so before that. It's actually all the same people. It's his era, it is Rusty, etc. That part must be cool. Even though you weren't doing anything good initially in this RMR, like to even make an RMR must have been a big deal back then, right?
No, it was massive. It was massive. The thing is that the whole time I've kind of been in GamerLegion, we've just got very, very slowly better all the time. Like we went from just hanging on to just being in the middle to just almost winning it over and over, qualifying to tournaments, coming in second place, going a bit deeper, and then we got to the RMRs, and I could see that at this point, like we were kind of skill capped a bit, and we were kind of just competing, but we weren't good enough. And I could see that if we to make the next step, we need either better players or we need people who really want to play a lot more. So this is the only time really I've ever really made changes ever in GamerLegion, is when I feel like people don't want to win that much, or there's mental sides of it where they're just not fitting in with the rest of the team. So for progression side of things, we've just constantly been progressing. I don't think there's ever been a period like in my career where we haven't just been progressing all the time. So just the grind of all these terrible tournaments, it's like the grind set as well. It's like you get used to failure, you know, and this is kind of important as well when you're playing these other tournaments. You get used to going to games with no preparation, so you have to freestyle stuff, you have to make adjustments, you have to read the other teams and stuff. Like there's huge benefits that when towards the end of CSGO, this was like our biggest strength, was we were going to a game, it doesn't really matter what game plan you're against it. We've already played against it, don't you worry. We've played against 20 different teams playing 20 different game styles on this one map, on this one side, over and over. It's becoming from all these playing tournaments, learning and getting better at them and sticking at them.
Yeah, that's actually the detail, if you remember, most famously at that Blast Paris Major was the one where, if you notice, it wasn't even just the teams like yours saying it. It was actually a lot of like the veterans saying, well, the one actual, believe it or not, there's an advantage that the lower teams have if they get into the Major, which is, like you say, essentially they've played like 5 times more maps than the rest of us. Because remember, the top teams don't play online CS anymore. They just go to LANs over and over again, or they play like a qualifier where it's almost like, it's not quite as bad, but it's almost, if you know guys like the home sweet home, they swoop in at the the end and then beat a couple of teams and then they're at the LAN. Like, they don't start that nightmare round one open qualifier, 1 billion teams, someone cheats or they don't, they don't start that one where just to get to the end of the qualifier feels like a saga. So one thing I have noticed in CS is even though that is like a nightmare, like you can absolutely get trapped in that. And I've seen pro players, by the way, and top like my mate MSL, essentially just the last few years of his career, he was just stuck in those bloody qualifiers. And he used to say, if I could just get to one LAN, we could probably do something. But as long as we're here, like it's actually like purgatory. You're just trapped in these qualifiers and you go to the quarters, the round of it. So obviously it's a massive, but if you do get out though, your team, Monte, people think of some of these squads, 9, all the teams that get out though, it sort of means, like you say, you're fucking hella battle tested at that point. Maybe not for LANs in the big stage, but just playing opponents, like you said, the styles that you've seen everything. You've seen every cheesy random Russian team that just insta peaks you and Zantaras is in the head. You've seen the teams that play bait. You get kind of a crazy, almost like I say, you get battle tested, right?
Yeah, you come out veterans. You come out veterans into a tier 1 scene where they're just not really playing that much, and they're all used to playing each other. And it's not just that; they're like pretty much you're like the last resort to playing practice as well, right? They don't want to play against you, so they're playing each other all the time. And then we're playing them. Obviously, as well, we're desperate to prove ourselves even more, and we want to play against them. And they obviously have a fear to lose, but it's a lot more than that. We like you said, we've played against everything at this point. You name it, we've played against you. If you're a new team and you think you've outsmarted or something, trust me, we've played against 10 times worse, more stupid things. We played against cheaters where we know the cheat and we've still got to try and win to get there. We've like the other week, literally last week, we played a Katowice tournament against known cheaters who were already banned, and we watched them back and they were blatantly cheating and they absolutely fucking destroyed us. And all we have to do is suck it up and go again and just keep doing that. And that's the tier 2 grind set.
Yes.
Is suck it up, you're playing against fixers and cheaters, go again, try and beat them. And you're analysing games where you've played against cheaters, thinking how next time can we not lose to cheaters. So this is how we make events. We just hope we don't play cheaters or we have to beat the cheaters. Like imagine that. Like imagine joining a server of matchmaking and a guy spin botting and thinking, right, how can we can go away from him, we can throw a flash that we can try and kill him. This is like the less extreme version of what we're doing all of the time. So of course when we go to the tier 1 events, we're not going to let this opportunity slip, right? We're not going to let it go because we've done so much to get there. Like this we've literally killed ourselves getting there. And in some instances we get there, we're already burning out. So it's just, I just hate it.
No, but by the way, I don't know anyone that likes it. Like, so the question I would have is this, though. As a coach, that also sounds really frustrating because the other beauty of being in tier 1, if you're a coach, like you say, you just play the same opposition. You play people who play real CS. Like, even if you take the teams, I don't know who people would say now that people think are the most like you, they just run and shoot people ahead. Not really compared to the teams in tier 2. Like, some of them really do just do shit where it's like, when you must analyze the demo, like, what am I supposed to take from this? Like, yeah, just don't get shot randomly by this guy or something. Like, what do you actually do to try and level up as a coach at this time?
I mean, you just analyze, and you basically try to like identify styles in the play whilst you're playing and think, all right, what can we do against this time? And it's like my memory's pretty terrible, but at this point, it's like having a library that's just overflowing with stuff like, oh yeah, remember when they do this, and we're going to have to do this, we have to match it with this. Most of the time, our approach just now is if they're swinging us like crazy and doing stupid shit, well, let's just go back and do it to them, and we just have full-out brawls with some teams, and I guarantee they're coming away from that game going, wow, GamerLegion, they play some stupid, brainless CS. Well, this is like our counter to it at this point. What we've learned from this is to beat those teams, you have to just do it back to them and then see if they can handle it.
Okay.
So it's basically everything about what we do is just finding a solution for next time and just trying to go for it again and identify what style we're playing against and go for it. And it's fucking stupid. And getting consistency here, you cannot play just one style in this CS. You can't do it. They will break you down. They will analyze every single thing you do, and you have to be on your toes and just be able to understand what's going on. And you have to adapt to it, and you have to do it, or you're not going to win. And you can't always win.
I hope people do remember that it wasn't just as Paris this major lineup existed, because famously, obviously, we're going to talk about you beat G2 at that IEM Rio RMR, which was a big result at the time. I mean, the joke is that was even when people all started hating on Hooks. He was actually after that result because he failed the first big one or whatever. But I want to ask him about putting this lineup together, because then when those other players came in, I'll ask about the least famous one initially. So tell me about the keoz move, because this is an angle where I didn't know this player before. What was the concept of what role he plays, and what was he adding to the team?
He didn't really fit the roles at all, to be honest. I think he just got benched from Simon or someone else. I'm not really sure who it was, maybe a French team. And we just played the quality. We didn't know who our fifth was. And I've got a thing, I like to get main game leader in first and then kind of have him involved and see what he needs, sort of thing. And keoz was kind of, we didn't even practice. We just played the qualifiers to the Monte RMR. and we just tried different people, and we just went afterwards. I just trusted Suihy on it, and I was like, who's the best one we played? We played Rallen. We tried to play with Kakanito, but he had like a 20k buyout for 1 day contract. We couldn't do it at the time. Obviously, we had no money to pay this sort of stupid money anyway. And we went with keoz. We tried him one. It went pretty well. And the next one we qualified. And we were like, okay, he seems like a pretty aggressive guy. He's definitely selfless, 100%. He's a great teammate. We don't really know anything about if he's going to fit the role or anything, but fuck it. We've qualified to the RMR. Let's go with him. Everyone liked him. So that was kind of the angle we went with. Like, and I'd liked him for quite a long time because we played before with the Era and Rusty sort of lineup. And I remember he just smashed us a few times, and he was just like one of those really unpredictable players, hard to play against. So I kind of like had an opinion on him anyway. But at that point, it was kind of like, well, we've qualified now with him. Why not go with him, right? We don't have anyone better than him. He seems like he's doing a good job. So let's take him from there.
And then what about, if at the time you got acoR, even though people remember he was good again in GamerLegion, and obviously he was actually the hero of this G2 game, actually this is the time where I would have said he basically had failed his chance at tier 1. Like, people had sort of given up. Like, put it this way, there was a time when this guy really was like one of the names that could have been in Astralis if people don't know. Like, he could have been the AWPer when they didn't have device. But since that time came and went, because people didn't like that MOUZ period, if you remember, a lot of people were out on this guy and they were like, nah, he's just a choker or he's bad or something. Obviously, right, if again, he's another player where I pray people to start watching POVs, because if you watch this guy's POV, he's one of the fastest AWPers you'll ever see. Like, and he's so precise too. So you can tell he's another player where like he has to be comfortable, but then when he is, I mean, you see what can happen. So give me some thoughts on acoR. Like, was it a gamble to pick him up? Were you just the level that he dropped down to? How do you get him?
I mean, at the time, it was a gamble because he had such a rough time, and we were just worried that going from a big org to a smaller org, that why would you be motivated? You know, this is always a big worry. Like, he's failed there now, and maybe he doesn't have the motivation to go anymore. But it didn't seem like that was the case. And from the eye test, like, the eye test tells you like you've got a world class off. You take the name away from you, like this could be literally anybody. When you watch him, his movement is unbelievable. He hits every flight.
He's
unbelievable,
hasn't he? Yeah.
And the way like he wings grenades and stuff as well, be like running backwards, jump throwing a smoke into the perfect position. Like, how the hell did you do that? Like, he just feels the game so easily. So from that point of view, it was kind of like, for us, it was a no-brainer because we get extra experience, a guy who's hopefully wants to improve himself and is super skilled. And we can't really get this in tier 2 from at that point in the organization because we were nobody at this point, right? We were a team that went to the RMR in Bucharest. We lost every map, including getting 2-0 by Dignitas. We were completely dead as a team, like the old Dignitas with like Freiburg and Forest and stuff.
Yeah,
we couldn't really attract anyone, and he was there because teams had like lied to him. Like Astralis said they were going to sign him, and they didn't do it. This is like one of the reasons he was still there, and he just sick of. I think he's to get paid. He had to stream like 50 hours a month or something, right? And he just didn't want to do it at all. I don't think. And he was like, "Yeah, I want to come compete again. Give me another chance and come." So we were like, "Yeah, for us, this is opportunistic, right? We've got to go for him now. We're not going to get anyone better." And he just worked out unbelievable for us. Like, it could not have been a better signing for us.
Because famously, when I had that weird time in my career where I did Flashpoint, but then we didn't get all the teams because they all signed with the ESL Pro League, and we ended up with that Mad Lions team acoR was on, who ended up actually winning the first season and kind of shocking everyone. And he was, by the way, like the standout player, if people don't remember. But I remember then when he would have later times that he was struggling a bit. When I went and watched, and also I did that thing where I just asked loads of teammates and people who've coached him and IGLs, and they all told me the same thing. They were all like, look, his talent level's there. Like, if he, basically, like if I could control his brain, he'd be like a top 10 AWPer in the world or something. But they said stuff like that he had, at the time he had like a mentality where he didn't think of himself as like a star or the guy who like gets the play made for him. He was more like, you know, just like a follower or something, or he was kind of like, which for an AWPer, I will say it's a kind of a dodgy spot to be in. You actually, put it this way, even though he hasn't made it yet, when Wrinkling and IP plays, I always tell people, my favourite thing is that he seems like a bit of a prick, if you know what I mean. Like, he seems like he actually thinks he's way better than you. Because, bro, I want my AWPer to think that. I want my AWPer to think, yeah, I'm about to peak Z, well, I'll probably fucking wreck him. Like, I don't really want my AWPer to be like, nah, should I, guys? Or, you know, you could take. What was it like to work with acoR? Was any of this going on at the time? Do you think he'd gotten past that?
No, I think that, I don't know if this is true or if this is what he thought, but it felt like MOUZ broke him because they just turned him into a full support bot. And basically, if they were doing a strat, he has to always be ready to smoke. And his default thought all the time wasn't, I'm going to go first and kill someone. It's, oh, I can do these nades for you guys all the time. And I'd never seen anything like this, and I didn't like it either, to be honest. And neither did Suihy when we were talking about. We had this talk about him like being the good boy or the bad boy. You know, the good boy is the good boy is the guy who just does what he's told. Sure. And he goes and he fills in and makes everything good. And the bad boy is the annoying guy in freestyle, going, guys, can I go peek this? Can you do this for me? Can I do that all the time? And he really had a hard time, like even like at the end in GamerLegion when he's been here for 2 years or something. I'm not quite sure the timeline. He was still kind of like this. I think it had broken him a little bit. And I think on Mad Lions, he just everything fit him and he knew his role, or he was being pushed like crazy. I think he had Hunden, right? And I talked to Huxley as well, and I asked about acoR, and he was like, oh yeah, acoR is a guy super talented, but you need to be telling him all the time exactly what you want from him, because he just forgets.
Right.
He literally just forgets everything every 2 weeks. You have to keep reminding him over and over and over, acoR, yeah, I want you to go for picks, I want you to do this, I want you to do that. And he does it and he's unbelievable. But you have to give like a ridiculous amount of resources to do this as well, right? But to work with, I said to him the whole time, like, if you want to be a top player in the world, like acoR, you can do it, but you've got to want to do it. And I just don't feel like that's what he wants to do that much. He doesn't want to commit his whole life to doing it. He's kind of like fine as it is, but I don't think he has maybe the inner belief that he can do it, even though it's just obvious he can with his talent. Like the best demo I've ever seen, like of anybody, is him against G2 on Inferno, which I'm sure we're going to come to like soon.
Next.
It was the cleanest POV I've ever seen positionally, the movement. Like if you want to go watch this CSGO, he's the most impactful AWP you're ever going to see on Inferno. And for me now, when I'm talking to like Slender on our team, I'm like, Inferno AWP, it's a great map. You can play amazingly, because I've seen what acoR could do. And he did this against like, the best teams. This guy, he could be one of the best in the world, but I just don't think he wants it enough. And that's just going to hold him back. And I've told him this. It's not like shit talking, right? I've told him this over and over and over. If he wants it, he can go and do it. But I mean, he's still made a great career out of things, right? I don't think you can deny that. And a major finalist and everything, and being on MOUZ Sports or whatever. So yeah, I have so much respect for him, and I think he's such a great guy and everything. If he wanted it, he could do it. And I think he's just unfilled potential in that aspect.
Yeah, let's do it then. So obviously the result that put GamerLegion on the map was this one against G2, even though, as I just alluded to, I think most people just framed it as, well, GamerLegion sucks, so G2 must really fucking suck, and Huxley must be down. And it was like the whole thing was hate-fed. But as you say, it was like, if people don't know, it was a 3-map series. Now look, if you ever watch a 3-map series on LAN with a team like G2, what you expect is like, third map's Inferno. If people don't know, that's like Nico's god map anyway. Like, they're going to win that. That's where you slap the underdog down. It's like, maybe you could have got me 2-0, but now I win out the third map. I go to the major. You just stay down here in the RMR. But as you say, remember, this is the era, bro, where famously even some of the best AWPers don't AWP on T side of Inferno. They just fucking, I'll have that AK, and then on CT side, yeah, I'll use my... This guy has like a fucking 30 bomb. Give me some thoughts on this game.
I've got a funny story from this as well, because they actually did us in the veto really bad. I can't remember why, but I think either we had a good record on Inferno, or at the time they were really struggling on it. I can't remember. So we didn't think it was going to be Inferno. And after every map, you go outside, you take your paper out, you read everything, right? And we didn't know. So I think that, I can't remember what it is. Something weird happened. So I don't think either team expected it. I remember just going outside and being like, guys, there's some paper from the last map. Turn it over. It's blank. Just go outside, and we're going to act like we've got the best game plan ever. We're going to be talking about it like we have it, and we're going to go out. We're going to trick them into thinking that we've done this amazing anti-strat.
Oh, were they outside this? The idea is both teams are outside, like smoking and talking, so they're seeing you with like all the papers. Basically.
Yeah, we're walking past them. We're handing paper out and everything. It's just blank.
So you're like Blade or something, right?
Pretending we've got all this stuff, and I'm like, guys, stand around me. I'm going to point this, and this, and we're just going to make them outthink themselves, because we've got nothing. We've got no idea how they play, by the way, at all. Literally nothing. So I don't know if it probably didn't matter at all. Or anything,
It'd be good for the story though, because you won.
It's great for the story, yeah. But this whole event, acoR was just on fire. It seems like in his career, when he goes somewhere and he has a point to prove, and he's got no system or anything, he goes in with this attitude that he's just gonna go in and be himself, and he's gonna smash everyone. When you put more structure in, he just fills in, he just reads his notes, and when reading, you can't be good when you read your notes. You just can't. It's just not good enough, right? You can't. Zio isn't Zio because he looks at his paper and reads, "I'm going to do this pick. I'll kill people. I'm going to do it over and over." He feels the game. He knows he has to do stuff, and he'll go try and force it. At this stage, we had nothing, and acoR was thriving. I think he had like 1.27 rating for the whole event or something, and we were playing against really good teams as well at this event. Like I think we played FaZe, Spirit, G2 obviously as well, because we were like the lowest seed. And in this game, he was just unbelievable. And the reads he had, it was the same when we played against Heroic as well. He's saying, guys, they're going to do this, they're going to come here, I can feel it now, they're going to do this, I'm going to go kill here. I remember we had a round that it was really close in the game, and he went, guys, I'm going to do this face it play. I Tech 9, I just run up, I throw a flashbang over the wall, and I rush. And he ran in, killed Huxley, killed Nico, ran the site, and we won the round off that. And I think it was like 13-13 or something stupid at the time. It's like the most famous play from that game, and that was basically acoR at that point. You put nothing, you just give him a blank canvas, and this guy will show everything he's kind of have. And this whole event, he carried us through this, and it's probably set up the future of the organization, because we got to the major off the back of this. And who knows, we might have been one of those other teams that just, we didn't make it. They go, oh, guys, we can't pay anyone. It was a quick contract. Goodbye, see you later. And acoR was like the guy that set us off on this path by being that good. And him in that series, he was unbelievable. Everyone else chipped in, but he was like by far our X Factor, and he wasn't even close.
And I referenced him earlier, but the actual aforementioned Wrinkle was on the B8 team that you had to beat to get to the major in the last match. And if people don't know, like at the time, I'll give you a little piece of info. I just have a sick memory for stuff like this. I remember the guy Innershine, who was the analyst of FaZe, on his Twitter had posted, and he'd said that B8 was one of the teams that was going to make this major, by the way. I think he like picked them as like a underdog or a dark horse or something. So actually, I'm sure some people even thought maybe GamerLegion loses this game. Was that a scary game at all?
We actually didn't know anything about them, to be honest, at all. So it wasn't. We were happy to have this, but I think that it didn't really matter who we were playing at that point. So we're just beating G2, and for us, this was like we were on the ultimate high. Yeah, to be honest. And I don't think there's anyone out there who was scared. Like, we should have beaten FaZe in the first game. We should have beaten Spirit in the second game, and now we beat G2. And this is the last game to go through. Like, you don't fucking beat all these teams and lose to the last one, right? It'd be like, I'm a big Liverpool fan, it'd be like Manchester City going the whole season on and then losing to like Wolverhampton at home or something. Like, it's just not going to happen. They're going to, at that point, they've done it. The job's over, You're just hoping for a miracle. And for us, that's like one of those games where you're playing like with a smile on your face. You think, yeah, we're going to make it. We're going to win. And nothing stressed us out all that game. So I don't think it really mattered about them. And they obviously, their first tournament, I think they never really played on LAN or that sort of thing. And they kind of struggled there anyway. Yes. RMRs before. I think we were just a good opponent, a bad opponent for them, and for us, this was like, yes, we've got a good run now, because we played the G2 game thinking, for fuck's sake, how was our luck this bad? We're going to get knocked out, and now we're playing B8 to get to the final, to get to the next stage. So we definitely weren't scared. We didn't really know anything about them, to be honest, at all. We'd have put them probably 0-3, I think, at the time.
And then when you actually went to the IEM Rio Major, right, this is one of the areas where when people remember the name of a major, you also should remember, it's one thing if the major's in like Copenhagen in Denmark. We've all been to Denmark. We've all been to European. Going to Rio must be pretty fucking wild if you haven't been to a lot of big tier 1 top lands at this point. I mean, I'm sure that's just complete like fucking culture shock, right?
I don't really know, to be honest, because the culture shock, in a nice country and everything, but we never like... I mean, the only thing I'd say we did was do like signing session with the fans, and to be honest, no one really cared about us at all. To be honest, I think we just kind of like it's kind of like acoR sign this, acoR sign this, acoR sign this, and no one else cared about anyone else, right? But what I would say, I hated this event so much because of kind of how the admins dealt with it and how the crowd was. I hated it, and I've got no problem calling out how shit it was, because we played the first game against 9Z, and obviously that was. Everyone was like saying like, oh, the crowd's going to influence everyone. We're going to get smashed, and we absolutely destroyed them in the first game because they were like South American but not Brazilian, right? Sure. So we go.
But that means the crowd was against you. I'm still sure.
The crowd was against us, but then we played Furia later on, and the crowd was just cheating. And they were blatantly cheating.
Yes.
They were holding signs up. They were chanting stuff all game. That X-ray was on. I remember played Vertigo. The first pistol, keoz was about to die in the back, and they're all shouting the screen, and he turns around and wins the 1v1. Right. We're playing Inferno, and keoz was running around spamming all. He just 1v1. He's just shooting boxes and things everywhere, and then eventually they all cheered, and he just ran out and just killed acoR, who panicked because the crowd gave it away. And between the maps, we our manager was absolutely going ape shit at the admins, going like, guys, please, let's just turn the X-ray off. Please do something. It's clear the cheating. And he went out into the crowd apparently and said, no, I don't see anything here. They're not cheating. It's fine. So we played the next map as well. I think the first half we didn't play with it on, and it felt fine. And it's obvious when I was coaching, like something's happened, because now we're struggling. And it feels like whenever we stack somewhere, we're wrong every single time. This is how the game felt to me. And they turned the X-ray back on halfway through the game when we were winning the game at the time. And after the game, our organization owner was in there with our manager, and they were just shouting at the admins for like 45 minutes or something, because this crowd had just screwed us over so hard. And I felt so... It wasn't just the fact that they cheated. Whenever you looked in the crowd, people are just like going like this with their hands and stuff, like looking at you, and you're like,
the famous chant they do is "You will die." That's it. It's in Portuguese, obviously, but yeah.
I'm coming up on camera, and they're all chanting, "I'm going to die" and stuff. I'm like, you don't even know who I am.
I know.
We've got like 6 guys in. You don't know where any of us are except for acoR. Sure. Why do you want us to die? Why don't you just want us to lose? Like, sure. And we're getting we're on like our phones and stuff before the game, and there's just floods of messages coming going.
The replies,
I will kill you. I will kill you. And you're like looking at, and they're in the crowd showing you the phones that they're the guys doing it. You're like, why is this fine? Like it's like even if it was like the biggest rivalry ever in football or something, you don't call for the other team to die or anything, right? And this is like, we're just nobodies. We're not rivals.
Sure.
You'll probably never see any of us ever again, most likely.
That was what everyone thought,
Yeah, and they're just calling for us to die. And it's not even like it was an all-in game. It was like the 2-1 game to go through as well. So for me, that was just unbelievably out of order. The admins didn't help us at all. They wouldn't turn the X-ray off. And the crowd were just unbelievable. Because then the next game, we played against Cloud9, the crowd were cheering for us. And I was like, fuck you. To be honest, like, I don't want your support at this point. Like, you've just all my players are locking that down, literally giving death threats. Why would I want you on my side now? So for this event was full bullshit, and also the fact that the way we lost it as well, we were 13-13 against Cloud9, and axel jumps out of apps in a 5v5 and one bullets izak midair, and it's like the most famous shot in like CSGO history or something. This is the way we get knocked out. We were 2-0 up to 2-3. To lose cheating to Furia. We lost a terrible game to BNE, and then we lost to Cloud9 16-14, 16-14, I think. Yep. And I remember after the tournament, I just went and cried like crazy. I just cried my eyes out. It was so, everything about it was so disappointing for me, like the effort to get there and everything, and to lose in that fashion from 2-0 up, thinking you're going to go through, to losing like that, cheating, and the crowd being like that, and then the way that we lost to Cloud9. I think we were like 12-3 up on the CT overpass or something. We lost that first map as well. I just remember we just went to the car and just cried my eyes out, and in the middle of the van, just waiting for everyone else. And it was just the worst experience ever for me. There's nothing really about it that I liked. I remember as well going out on, we went out on the beach one night at like 4 a.m. or something, because I think we were already out. And just this person was just following us around on the phone. And we were like, fuck, we need to leave, because we just feel like someone's just going to show up in a van and just kidnap us or something. And wherever we went, we had to go with bodyguards, like even for a meal. We're like everything, like just for your own safety. I'm like, what have we even done? We haven't even beaten any Brazilian teams. Why? We've knocked out the tournament, and we felt scared. We felt scared to go anywhere. So for me, this was fully shit, and I think that I'd probably take it worse, because I see myself kind of like as the guy who's looking out for the players, right? And I felt scared for everyone's safety the whole time. When we're signing autographs afterwards, I'm thinking, if we won this game against Fury, would they be jumping over the barriers and stuff for us? Like, it was just horrible. I hated it, to be honest.
There was one good result, which is part of the going up 2-0, was you guys beat fucking Vitality. You remember they'd won like the Pro League. This is, by the way, the same lineup that you play at Blast Paris, obviously. Like, it's when they had Spinks. Admittedly, they hadn't gotten fully to the level they were next year. But to beat them, and not only that, you didn't just beat them, mate. You beat them actually like fairly convincingly and on Vertigo. And for someone who's a casual fan, I always say, look, I'm a massive Vertigo hater. But I'll tell you another reason I hate it, Ash, is because if someone has god aimers like fucking Vitality, it's really hard to win on that map. Like, you see him on CT side, it's like, good job, good luck going B, by the way. Try going up those stairs. Like fucking 3 sick aimers banging your head off. Like, how did this win happen? This seems like an inconceivable win, almost on par with the G2 one.
I mean, it was best of one, to be fair. And I remember in this game, we had like a 0-5 start. And I remember the first Byron, we were about to win it, and Z would just got like a collateral through the smoke. So I was like, well, this is just over now. Okay. We're done here. But this is like the most, if I think of a game where tier 2 helped us the most, it was this game. I remember Suihy was just fully like locked in it this game with his call.
He was even fragging out on T-side, yeah.
Yeah, he was fragging out. Yeah, and this is the first time I really saw him being like, yeah, this guy's going to be really good one day. And he was calling stuff like, I remember one round, we like did double smoke in middle on the T side. We walked up and we just ran through the smoke and killed Dupree. And Dupree just started laughing on the face cam. And we were looking at him like laughing. They couldn't believe how stupid it was. And at that point, I was like, oh shit, we're going to win this game. And everyone was just feeling it. We were running around and they just couldn't handle the style we were playing. And for us, that style was like, well, this is how everyone in practice plays Vertigo.
Right.
But you don't play us on Vertigo because you don't want to play the tier 2. Like, there was like a 7-month period where the team started throwing this smoke down yellow, right? And I was talking to like Hampers stuff like, we're really struggling against this smoke. Like, what happens? And it was like, what smoke's this? And I'm looking for all these tier 1 demos and I can't find anybody playing against it to see how they play with it. It's like, I've never seen this smoke. And we've been playing against this smoke for like 5-6 months or something. Every single team is doing it every game. We've never seen it somehow. And we couldn't believe this is like just the meta. And obviously from there, every single team was doing this all the time. And this is probably one of the reasons why teams like Vitality and stuff started practicing against us at the end, because they didn't want to get caught off by us. And this tournament, they got caught off by us because I don't even think at this point our revolution was even that high. We were just kind of getting good at this point. And they just felt the full force of tier 2 CS thrown at them, to be honest, at that moment. So I don't think they were ready at all.
Is it the case, by the way, that when suihy came in this team, if people don't know, it's actually why, if you ever go back, even though I give mad credit to MOUZ for how they did the academy system and then they brought up the coach and then he piece by piece brought them up. And I even think in a way it was almost genius that he did it piece by piece. He sort of integrated each piece with real other tier 1 pros. Then eventually he could bring in the next ones. But I always think if you go back, the order they did it in was so weird though. Because if you remember, they brought like JDC and Torj up first. And then the two they left out, like I always tell people, they did that run like initially without even getting exertion. And it was like, mate, exertion was the one you looked mad cracked out. And then suihy, obviously, since everyone knows MOUZ NXT was the best of the academy teams, the IGL has to be doing something in that scenario. It's not really a DM server, guys. Like, they're real teams playing real CS. And suihy was basically the last one. And the joke was, obviously, they didn't bring him up. He came to your team. And then because of what he did, they came back later. Right? How is this guy even available? Like, was he really just the one where you're seeing him in MOUZ NXT? Like, we can just get this guy?
The times I saw him, so the first game they ever played together as a team, we were really good at Mirage, bro. We were really, really good. We were like the only team in Tier 2 CS that could like beat Forza, and Forza would just be like 20.
Oh, that was one of their best maps, yeah.
Yeah, and we would be the only team that would ever beat them ever, and they'd just be, you look at like 94% win rate, like fucking hell, you go in results, it's just us beating them, nobody else, and we're like losing to them as well, right? We played MOUZ NXT on their debut, and they 16-3'd us, and I just like, this is like the hardest team the hardest loss I've ever had. And then we played them again a few months later, and they 16-0'd us on Nuke. I've never been 16-0'd ever in my life. And I was like, okay, something about this team is pretty special. So when we kind of needed an in-game leader, I had two people on mind that we would talk to. One was Hooksy, who would just, I can't remember what happened, but he was literally like in tears the day I talked with him because a big move had fallen down. So I assumed that something with G2 had happened and it didn't work. And then we were talking with him, it was like, oh yeah, maybe it's not possible and stuff, and like the where the org's at, and maybe not. So maybe I'm interested, maybe I'm not. And then he went to G2 a few days later. And the other guy was suihy, who we're talking with, and that's just because obviously they've done so well with MOUZ NXT. They were like top 30 in the world. They were higher ranked, I think, than the main team.
Yep.
And we're like, something's right. And they were still like okay when the other guys left. And I talked with him, and he was just like an impressive like young guy. He spoke really well, and he had a clear idea of where he wanted to play. But the suihy that joined us the first 3-4 months was not the suihy that left us at the end of GamerLegion. His like evolution was ridiculous. Like this guy improved so much, like so much. He became such a better leader. He became a better player individually. He really, his confidence grew so much. I think he played on MOUZ NXT, and at some point they bombed out badly in the Academy League, and they won this like every year, right? And they bombed out really badly. They were losing to everyone, and I think that because he hadn't been promoted, he like lit a fire in him really bad. And this is one of the main reasons I think I really wanted him, because I could see this kid was really pissed. He was really pissed. I think he'd been promised a few times that they were going to promote him, and they never did it. And he felt like he should be in that main team. He should have had a chance by now because MOUZ weren't doing the greatest. And this is like a huge bonus because I thought, yeah, this kid, he's proved it before. He's super motivated. He has a way he wants to play. Let's get him in and try him. And then he just soaks everything in again. It's like mezii, but as an in-game leader for me. And he just lifts everything in the team all the time. And he has standards, and he's not scared to do it. He's like a 20-year-old, and they've got like acoR 26, keoz 23, izak 22. The youngest guy on the team, and he's not scared to say it if something's bad. He'll just come out and say it over and over. And I was so impressed because the kid at the start would not have done this. And as it went on, he found his footing. And I bet MOUZ Sports were so surprised by the guy that joined them when he joined the main team. I bet they were like, what the hell happened here? This kid's just 10 times the guy that when he went out with the academy team. But even then, he was still very good. Like when he came in, he was still very good. And he was definitely one of the two reasons I think that we made it through like the Monte RMR and the first major. But at that point, it was definitely acoR. And towards the end of it, it was like suihy is the standout guy here along with him. Like they're fully equal level at this point. And IMO had one of the best tournaments ever, right?
One thing people obviously will have seen with suihy is he is obviously actually an IGL that can frag, like he can even have games he's big. But I've also seen that it feels like all the analysts I know also want, like I do, again, when he's like this player, we all put him in like that sort of Carrigan-esque, Lexi B-esque lineage of like the guy where they clearly want like control over the team and to make like the mid-round calls. What type of IGL is he?
I mean, for us, he was like our third star player. Like acoR, Ima, and suihy was like our third star. And he'd run around one bulleting people all the time, by the way. He had really, really, really good aim. But his initiative there, he wanted to be the playmaker. He wanted to go in first all the time, find space. but he wanted it like on his terms, and he'd win a lot of duels. And he had so many periods where he'd have like 60% entry attempt success rate on attempts, on T side, going and killing people. I think on mouse sports he doesn't do that anymore at all. I think he's kind of taking a back seat on that. And this is he's kind of now just filling in a lot of the time. But he's just the personality. He will do it if someone's better. Right. But for us, he was a fully star player, and he would have stayed like this for us as well. Like he was playing rotation positions and stuff, but he was playing like a star player a lot of the time. It wasn't like when Apex is playing like middle on an Uber or something. Yeah, he's going to run to A, he's going to flash over, he's going to delay in middle just to buy time for the rotates and stuff. Shu is the kind of guy who's going to kill people when they come. And now I don't think he's really that guy, just because that's not what mouse sports want of him, right? But for us, he was a completely different player for us, 100% the way his roles were.
What about, can you explain what it is? Because what people intimated something like that when you got him, it was something like there was like a buyback clause or something, like they could bring him back to mouse. Is that true?
I still don't know. I knew what it was, but I don't really know. I think it is something similar to a buyback clause. I remember that at some point GamerLegion was saying that, like in January the year before we sold him, that they could have called him back or something.
Oh wow, okay.
Something like this, or bought him back. I'm not quite sure what the terms were, but I did know, but I can't remember anymore.
Fair enough.
Obviously he's gone now. But we always knew that we were like if MOUZ wanted him, they could try and convince him, but they wouldn't just have him. So from what it makes me think is that they must have had to buy him back, right? Like in football, you can have a buyback clause, but it doesn't mean the player just joins you. He has to want to join you as well, right? So it must have been something like that.
Right. What about one of the things I wanted to ask about was, when you're having these results, obviously after that, people want them to see, and this is actually an area I always tell people is a bit weird, because one of the weirdest things about the way Counter-Strike works, maybe it's a reference back to what we were saying about how different tier 1 and tier 2 can be, is I always tell people, right, people think like the rankings of a tier 1 tournament are like actually an accurate like representation of how good the teams in the tournament are, whereas obviously there are things like who did he play, what maps did he play, and how did someone individually. But I always tell people the difference between tier 2 and tier 1 is so distinct that famously, if you ever did go and watch the teams who come like near the bottom of the tier 1 lands, but they get to all of them, sometimes they can go, I mean, they do it to this day, to like an ESL Challenger or a DreamHack back in the day, and they don't win it. You'll think like, well, wait a minute, if they're almost beating this, like the 13th best team, if they go to a team tournament with all the 20th best, they should just walk through them. It's not really like that though. So what's the struggle? Because after this, a lot of people, I'm sure, wanted to, after the G2 and the Vitality, well, I'm sure in the months since, they were sort of naysaying and being like, where the fuck is this team? Like, I've done this to Bad News Eagles a million times. I'm actually sick of them going to those majors, looking fucking spicy, and then coming to all the other tournaments. It's like, you're not even getting through the online qualifier, boys. Like, if you go to a LAN, you don't win it always. What's the struggle when you go back down and you have to go back into the tier 2 scene in that sense?
I think some of these teams that have done this haven't been the best tier 2 teams. Like you said, Bad News Eagles have never been one of the best 2, but I think their style is just horrible. Of all the styles to play, it's the worst, and it's literally our approach when we beat them at the RMR not long ago for the last major was we just have to throw everything out of the window. We just have to fight them, because if we don't shut them down, they're going to keep coming at us. Like we played Mirage, and like every round they would just jump in our spawn in like 20 seconds. Synopsy flanked us like 3 times in the first like 7 rounds. When we're taking attack pause, we're like, guys, don't try any defaults, don't try any rounds, just fight them. And this is why when you go to LAN, they're horrible to play against. It feels like they're genuinely playing random, and they're just, I've got a feeling I'm going to do this. I've got a feeling I'm going to do this. And when you're losing to this, how do you adapt? You can't adapt. There's nothing that a coach can say other than, guys, let's go. Just play their own game. We're better players. We can fight them. I think for BNE, their style fits LAN so hard, but there's other teams as well who have played tier 1 events and done well, who haven't been the best tier 2 teams. Like, for example, Movie Star Riders, they like had a period where they had like 7% win rate or something in like 3 months, and they go to like Pro League and they do like really well.
Yes.
And we're like scratching our heads in tier 2. Like, these guys aren't even good. I don't know if like they go to the event and they're just super hyped to be there, or this matches their playstyle or something. But when we're playing against them, it's just not even like obvious that they're even good. And even teams like Forza, like they go in and do really well. We're like, yeah, Forza are good, but if you avoid them on like Mirage and maybe like one other map, you're actually okay against them. I don't know if this is like a bit of hubris from like the tier 1 teams being like, oh, we'll just beat them on this map, we'll just beat them here on this map, we're not going to research them that hard. And then obviously the need to prove themselves is a bit higher. But some teams, it's pretty obvious when we're playing against them, we're like, okay, this Monte, for example, and even us and Nine, we knew these teams coming through, we were going to be the next big ones going to lands upsetting people. And then it's just like, can you get to the event and not shit the bed? with like the whole circumstance, the 100,000 viewers, the fans in there, the media attention, everything. If you can overcome that, we know which teams are going to be good. Sometimes for some reason, like Movistar riders get to Pro League, or they used to get Pro League because they win the Spanish championship, right? They just beat a semi-pro Spanish team you've never heard of a single player, and they get there, and then they just take the chance. And this happened a lot, and until they restructured everything, and now it's not happening as much. So, yeah, I think sometimes it's pretty obvious when these teams aren't that good, and sometimes pretty obvious when they are. So some of these examples are definitely just squeezing through, and playstyle-wise, I think they're just catching teams off guard. And again, they don't practice against these teams. They just don't know what to expect.
Along those lines, after you've been to a major, you've beaten Vitality, even if it's a BO1, you've beaten G2 in a best of 3. Do you finally get the scrims after that? Do you get some scrims at tier 1 if you ask?
Maybe a few more. But not like there's some teams we never played against until we played them at the event. Like, for example, we never played MOUZ Sports a single time until we knocked them out of the major at Paris. Never a single time. And there's other teams like this we never played them a single time. We barely ever played Heroic. Heroic had famously like screwed us over multiple times. I think we played a practice against us, and they're just dickheads. I don't know what it is. They've just always been dickheads about them. And we were playing a game, and for some reason they decided they didn't like something we did, so they just all P90s and rushed at us. And then the next day we had a practice against them, and they just booked practice against us, didn't cancel it, and all went on deathmatch, and we were just like, well, you just wasted an hour of our lives, and no one gave a shit. So this is the kind of the level of disrespect these teams have, and they still don't want to practice you now. Teams will still have us blacklisted for rosters we had like 12 months ago. There's not a single player there still anymore, and that's just the way that some of these teams are, and they just don't want to practice against you. So some of them will practice. But the ones that we barely ever practice are the ones, to be honest, that we've kind of been beating a lot at these tournaments.
When you guys went to the Blast Paris RMR, I'll just say it straight up, even though people might have like remembered the lineups run, this one looks like, mate, you did walk on water with that fucking draw. Like, holy shit, you just avoided all the good teams. Like, Navi's there, there's MOUZ is there, FaZe. You just avoid all these teams. You just get like the miracle Swiss draw. So the problem is, I think that's why people didn't hype you. They thought, oh, you've just got all the easy teams. Look, not really. Like, I know, for example, one win at Total Bombs and like fucking... I mean, actually, even OG has some good players. Obviously, not that great a squad, but they had some... They're fucking Dexter. He's a mega mate. It's like, what did you think of this RMR?
Yeah, we got very lucky this time, 100%. Falcons, I think at the time had a bit of hype around them, but I think it was more that people just wanted them to get the Paris one, right? It was French people. But
yes.
We went into this RMR knowing we were one of the best teams. We knew at this point we were one of the best 100%. Us and Apex in tier 2, we knew we were the two best teams. And we felt we were significantly better than Apex as well, and they probably felt the same about us, right? And we just knew that if we got a semi-decent draw, we would make it through, but we just got like the miracle draw. I think we lost a game. I think we lost to Apex in a best of 1, and we had like a disaster with the prep. And then we had to play some absolute bullshit decider between us and BNE because they decided that the boost shell system ends before the last game played. But when the last game finished, we would have gone through as the Legends team, but then because they did it before those games ended, because they wanted to do the scheduling, we had to play against BNE with a boost shell system that hadn't even finished because the team that we'd beat hadn't played yet, and if they won their game, they get a higher score. So we played against them, we lost in a game that we weren't as focused on it, obviously, we last minute, because you try to celebrate that you've made the RMR, and then you're like, oh, you've got a game in 8 hours, and we're like, we shouldn't even be playing this. We should be playing the last game of the day, like every other major ever. And that would have made a difference, like stickers-wise, stuff. It made a massive difference, I think, if we'd have won that game. But we didn't do it. But the run we had, it was just, we didn't feel challenged at this one, in the sense we didn't get to play anyone good. But we knew that we were good. I think the people were down on us going into the major because just before that, we accepted a last-minute invitation to play against Ents and Astralis in some stupid group stage or something. But Ents and Astralis had nothing to play for. They weren't going to the major.
Right.
And for us, it was like, we're just going to play it because... well, we enter every time with tier 2, you accept everything. And we lost to both of them, but we lost like 2-1 to Ents and a close 2-0 to Astralis or something, right? So everyone was super down on us for some reason there. We didn't really understand it because we was really good at this point. I could definitely see the improvement. We went into this event knowing we could do a lot of damage.
When you guys, as you say, when you beat MOUZ, by the way, only one map was even close. It was like a convincing 2-0. And if you ever go and look, that was when MOUZ already was supposed to be right on the brink of like big time things. People already thought this team can like go to like finals of tournaments. Maybe they're going to win a tournament sooner or later. What was it like to 2-0 this squad on LAN?
It was nice. And this whole LAN was it was a frustrating narrative because obviously we shit the bed at the start against the two worst teams at the time because all complexity weren't very good and Mongols were not Mongols that they are now.
Yep.
We shit the bed really hard. It's just our Inferno was letting us down. And we went obviously going 0-2 and playing against MOUZ. And for this whole tournament, whenever we won, because we were on the verge of elimination, we knocked the other team out. They obviously didn't do very well. Because you can't do well when you're already knocked out, right? But MOUZ had just come from top 8 at the last major or something, and everyone was saying this team was really good. We played OG just after them as well, and everyone was like, OG are really scary right now. You don't want to play against them. And then we played Fours, who were just going to Pro League or something, and they just smashed everyone. I was like, oh, Fours are the underrated team. They're definitely going through. So when we played against MOUZ, for us, it was added motivation because we had acoR and we had suihy, and both of them had just been hard rejected by MOUZ, right? And in that game, both of them were really good. They were really hyped up, and they give that extra energy. And I remember we had a really bad start on Mirage, I think. And I remember suihy being like, guys, we're going to win this game. I swear to God, we are going to win this game. I need to run around killing people. And from there, we won it. And for this was a really nice win. I really rated the way they played. They had really good players. And for us at the time, like, this was a big scalp. And this gave us so much momentum for the whole tournament when we did this, because we knew that we'd beaten a good team, even if they hadn't shown it at this event.
When you guys made it to the playoffs, what people will forget is that everyone said, this is the aged very poorly now. That's why I'm saying he'll play this way. If you look at who you could get, right? Because you're a 3-1 team, right? You could have had like Team Liquid. There's a scenario there where like the other two teams, the 3-1 teams, is you, Liquid, and Monte, right? And at the time, Monte are the team that online had all those maps where they had 1 billion times they were winning against everyone. Everyone was actually saying Monte's supposed to be really good. And funnily enough, this is age bad as well. Everyone was saying Boros is like the next fucking star player. And if you watch his game, he's crazy and stuff. So actually, I remember almost every fucker was picking Monte to win this series. And everyone was going, you got lucky that they got GamerLegion was the famous thing people said now, which is obviously aged very poorly at this point in time. What happened in this series? Because you guys kind of just beat them straight up.
I think it ended up being like the easiest game of the whole tournament. Maybe Apex was easier when we beat them to qualify to this stage, but this ended up being the easiest one. I feel like prep wise, this is the one we nailed the hardest. Like the absolute hardest. We fully understood their style again from the TS2 stuff.
Looks like the veto was awesome for you, mate. You got fucking the maps you want.
Yeah, we did, and we ended up on overpasses. We ended up overpass as well, which was great for this tournament. And the game plan, I went into this thinking, the only way we're going to lose is if we just lose all the jewels that are in our favor. That's the only way we're going to lose. We could see there's such a huge tactical flaw, and we just exploited it. And this is really weird because this tournament, they were fucking amazing. I remember they beat Na'Vi, who were looking really scary, and they were just, everyone they were playing against, they were just looking unbelievable. Yep. And for us, this somehow was just the easiest game for us. I mean, there's definitely going to be other factors, right? They probably weren't feeling it on the stage as much. I think we were slight crowd favorites because we had keoz at the time as well. Maybe this kind of kicked in there. Just had bad starts and stuff, but this ended up just being unbelievably simple for us when people were saying we were going to lose. And this is like our story for the whole event, right? We were the underdogs in every single game we played, except for the 2 games we won at the start, the best of ones. Every other game we were underdogs going into it. And we were just smashing out best of 3s and beating everyone 2-0 the whole tournament.
When you played Heroic in the semis, look, I'll say like people said it. I said it, mate. It was like, it's the freest fucking semi of all time. It's bullshit, man. And also, at the time, like, if you remember, FaZe had sort of been doing a comeback and they're looking good again. Then Heroic just beat FaZe and everyone's like, oh my God, it's Heroic's time. It's Heroic's time to win the major. They're going to be at the minimum in the final. They're going to win now. Like, if people don't know, true, the first 2 maps were super close. Like, if people don't know, the second map, the Inferno one, is actually what really spawned the whole Cadian wants to be the main character, because for whatever reason, tell you what, even if he was a prick to you in practice, mate, you should send him flowers just for that fucking playmate on Inferno, which through the fucking game for inexplicable reasons. But after that, this is the part I'll never forget. I can still remember vividly that 3rd map, right? If people don't know, Heroic is a really good Mirage team, mate. They're fucking dynamite on T-side on that one. You guys fucking crushed them flat. You just killed them. Give me some thoughts on this semi, because this is, people forget, at the time, the top 2 teams were Heroic and Vitality. That was actually fair that these teams were going to end up in the major final, it seemed like. And you remember the famous thing about Heroic was, even if people say they choked, against the best teams in the world, they were probably the number 1 team at crushing what people thought were bad teams. If you remember, they used to just crush everyone with their style. Look, first of all, I imagine those stories from scrims must have been beautiful to fucking beat these fuckers on stage. But then, how do you do it? At the time, everyone was like saying, Cadian's the best IGL or whatever. What happened in this series?
Well, for us, they were the number 1 by quite a distance. This team, like in the world, we the way they were playing was just, this was horrible. Like as I say for Monte, it felt like we won on prep. This game, prep was just out of the window, and we just basically had nothing. I was watching the way they're playing every game; it's completely different. And I just said, guys, they're gonna, doesn't matter what we do, they're gonna play completely different this game. We just have to adapt. We have to be on our toes. We have to play good. And we started off with Ancient, and we played like the best T-side Ancient we'd ever played in our lives. And then we lost the game from like a 12-3 or something, T-side Ancient, which was unheard of like at this stage. And we'd lost the game from here. And then to go back into Inferno, which, like I said, the only 2 maps we played Inferno, we lost to Mongols and Complexity the whole tournament. And we felt that was our best map going into it. And then we just like, wow, we're fucked now. But we didn't expect them to pick it. We really didn't expect them to pick it at all. So we were even less prepared. And when we played this was, again, for me, it was this was, the whole series was the suihy show, and it was the acoR show, and then Immer went to overdrive on Mirage. And this was, suihy on Ancient was really good at calling. suihy and acoR on Inferno. Again, acoR was just doing this thing. It was like, guys, they're going to come here, they're going to do this, over and over and over. He was just fully locked in the matrix. Like, he was calling everything. He was seeing all the numbers. He wasn't even seeing the game. It was like he was just wall hacking. And I'm still behind, like, how do you know this is going to happen? How do this is going to happen? This was like the best acoR you're just ever going to see. It was the same acoR that carried us through against G2, and he was just feeling the game so hard, and the other guys were stepping up. Like, everyone in this entire, everyone in the entire team was doing their job really, really well, and suihy now was just the fully complete in-game leader that is on mouse spots. And when we went into Mirage, we were just playing a default. I don't even remember us ever running this default, and we were just playing it, and we were just playing straight up CS. We weren't doing any gimmicks or anything. We were just defaulting, splitting on them, swapping the tempo every so often, and everything we were doing was just tactically brilliant. Like, I've watched that game back and been like, I did not realize how good we were tactically until I watched that game back on T-side, and it was just beautiful. Like, it is so nice to watch the way we played. That was the way suihy played. Immer just kicked in, like I said, and everyone was just really good, and it felt so legit. I mean, there's parts of it where I'm not so happy. Like, I remember we won one round because the crowd just sold Cadian, because we were obviously the big crowd favorites because we had keoz, and they just didn't want Heroic to win at all because they wanted Vitality to have an easy final, right? And one round, I remember he was flanking us on right round, and the crowd's screaming, and acoR's like, something's up here. He turns around, kills him, and this is like 6-3 or something to us, right? And that could have changed the game from there. But from there, it just felt like we just straight up beat them, to be honest, and we just felt like we were just really good. And I mean, obviously, I'm not saying we were better in the road, but we felt we were really good this tournament, the whole tournament. And this was kind of like the cherry on the cake. And we needed this because everyone was saying all the time, it's just fluke, it's fluke. We needed something to legitimize it. And it's like, what more can you do other than beat the team that everyone says is the best in the world? Like, everyone says Vitality afterwards is the best. Heroic were the best in this, going into this tournament, 100%. And this is the team I did not want to play. And I remember I had a talk before the entire major, and I sat down and went into like a room in reception before we played a single game, and I said, guys, we've been looking at the state of Tier 1 CS, and the teams right now in Tier 1 CS are not good. They're losing to each other consistently. Everyone looks burned out and everything. And I said, bar like Heroic, I reckon we can win this major. Like, genuinely, I think we can win this major. We are really good now. And then we go 0-2 obviously straight away.
By the way, how did the players take that? Because here's the thing, like, sometimes, I mean, I think sometimes even when people do those hero speeches, sometimes some players are like, whatever, yeah, we'll see in the game, you know. If you say that, do the players just go like, yeah, we can win the match? What do they actually think? Do they think, well, whatever, we'll see, you know? I
don't know. I don't attribute that to like how we did well. It's just like a story I bring up. I remember saying we were going to win that major.
That's legit.
I had it written down like this. I'm going to bring this up. I think that nobody here is unbeatable for us anymore. And there were tournaments they were. Like, we went into the RMR in Rio, we were like, holy shit, we don't want to play Cloud9, we don't want to play Vitality, we don't want to play this team, or we're going to get smacked. And now it's like, there's barely anybody. If we don't end up the same side as Heroic, we can beat anybody. And this is exactly what happened, right? And we go straight to the final. So in that sense, it felt like we could do it, and then everything kind of lined up, and we just needed one win to tell everyone this wasn't a fluke, because everyone was saying it was a fluke, but at the same time, everyone was saying we are underdogs. Every game we have no chance. Every game. But then we keep winning and it's still a fluke. And we just needed like a big win. And Heroic for us, that was the big win. And that's been the best moment of my career. 100%, and the celebrations and having the crowd there, because I don't think there's any other circumstance that this GamerLegion team has 20,000 fans standing up screaming for us ever, and it probably will never happen again because they just wanted Heroic to lose, right?
Yes.
And this is something I'm probably never going to have ever happen again, and maybe even the other guys like Imma and Suihy maybe even never has again, because the entire arena was on our side to win, and for this was just like the ultimate payoff for everything. It legitimized everything. It was great Counter-Strike. The way that the guys had been there with everybody for so long and seen it all come together, and the crowd's all cheering for us. It was like the best experience of my life for sure.
As you say, by the way, that was the first one where I then started watching the fucking POVs of Imma, and I watched that one on Mirage, and that is actually a fucking masterclass. Like, both sides. By the way, T-side, he just fucking runs the game, mate. It's mental. Like, he does all the plays you think of an aggressive rifler doing, where you go, like, you get into the fucking connector, you do all the timings on how to catch someone. Are they on the jungle side? Are they on the fucking little thing behind the wooden part? Are they over at the ticket? He just somehow gets the timing on everyone. Like, what do you think of this game if you watched it back?
He just exploited everything, to be honest. And it wasn't, again, it wasn't like intentional. He was just feeling the game super hard. And the lurk timings he had, but it's not just the lurk timings. He's like flicking around and winning angels with Stown and stuff.
Yes.
You know, like it should never happen. They just instant wumble it in them. Yep. And it's not like even, it's not even like a headshot guy anyway. He's like a body spraying guy.
Yes.
And he's just doing this and spray transferring someone else and killing another guy. He just had no fear of failure at all. Literally nothing. But Suihy called such an amazing game. Like I said, I can't credit him enough there. And the way everyone else played off each other, nobody was scared. Nobody was scared to win this tournament. Nobody was scared to make the mistake that would lose a round. Everyone was just fully out to do it. And we had so many rounds where we had like win conditions behind our win conditions as well. You know, if something failed, we were still going to potentially win the round. And this is the sort of thing that just barely ever happens ever. And for us, it just all clicked at the perfect time.
Everyone needs a support network, and mine is, of course, my Patreon community, the Scruminati, who, in many ways, they're the Sonny to my Cher, saying, I got you, babe. So this video and all the others on my channel were kindly supported by the following names: Ahmed Hadju, Mac Pugnaccio Rakula, Adam Tomlin, Animosity, Jensen Go, Tosh, Toucan, and you know it. Jerky's Minion, my main man, always going to be referenced, one of the best patrons of all time. Would you like to ask a question in my AMA? Maybe you want to suggest a topic or a guest to say on my channel? Do you want teasers? Find out who the upcoming Reflections and Talk to Thorin interviews are. Maybe you want to do one of those long discussions where you get to set the topics we talk about. Well, if any of these or others appeal to you, put your money where your mouth is. Join the Scruminati today via the Patreon link in the description box below.